In the proud tradition of all the great movie trilogies, Lord of the Rings, Back to the Future, The Matrix, Police Academy 3, and Scream 3, I present to you Information Technology Governance Part 3.
In Information Technology Governance Part 3, we're going to focus on information security management as it relates to IT governance. We'll look at 5 key areas: personnel management, insourcing and outsourcing, organizational change management, IS quality management, and finally, performance management. Information systems management practices are going to be a functional reflection of the way that you implement your policies and procedures for various management activities. In a typical organization, the IS department functions as a service organization or a service entity. Its goal to help production departments do their operations more effectively and more efficiently. But as we saw earlier, IS has become a much more integral part of every area of the operation of the organization. Let's refer back to that SONA diagram real quick. Remember how our infrastructure services are at the heart of our organization or our business, with the business applications and collaboration applications sitting on top of that. It's highly unlikely there's going to be a reversal of this trend, so information system auditors have to understand and have to appreciate the extent to which this well-managed IS infrastructure and all of its services are critical and crucial to the organizational objectives. Management activities that review the policy formulations and procedures and their effectiveness in the IS department include things like personnel management, insourcing and outsourcing, organizational change management, IS quality management, and performance management. Let's tackle each of these IS management practices one at a time. The first area is personnel management, and don't forget, we're still looking at this general umbrella of information technology governance. So under that umbrella, personnel management relates to us as auditors. We want to make sure that there's organizational policies and procedures for all different types of things that relate to personnel and its effect on information resources, its effect on information technology, making sure that it's effective, that it relates to the individual IS function, and how the impact of the quality of the personnel and the performance of the staff relates to information security duties. So we want to look at things like, does the company or organization have in place employee handbooks that include the policies and procedures, and do these map to the organizational goals and the direction of the company or the business? Employee handbooks should be distributed to all employees at the day they're hired. You should have information in there like the security policies and procedures, the expectations of the organization, maybe information on benefits and vacation days, things relating to time off, overtime, maybe non-disclosure agreements, outside employment and contracting policies, ongoing evaluations for employee performance, maybe some emergency information, and of course, stuff that's related to termination or disciplinary action, excessive absences, if you break the confidentiality agreement or any aspect of the security policy, overall non-compliance. There should be a published kind of code of conduct and mission statement for the organization that kind of lays out all of the employees' duties within the organization. You can go on the web and find some sample PDF files for employee handbooks or Word documents. They're easy to find. Let me just show you real quickly a couple of examples that I found just doing a simple Google. Here's a sample employee handbook in PDF format. Just kind of shows you it's a couple of years old. This doesn't represent any specific company. It's very generic. So you would want to make sure that you are adhering to your corporate security policy, your overall rules and regulations and policies and procedures, and your legal department. But you can see it's broken down in different areas, an overall purpose, mission, value statement, and then it just lays out in this beginning table of contents, individual employment policies, business hours, the confidentiality agreement, dress code, conflict of interest, rehiring eligibility, holidays, that type of information, stuff that relates to expense reports, membership in other organizations, other types of personnel issues like substance abuse policies, safety and security. Then of course it goes into insurance benefit information, and then voting, and then it kind of starts breaking it down. You can see this is a generic little employee handbook that a company could use. So this is a PDF example of one that's out there with some neat little Microsoft generic graphics there. I've also got one in Word format. Let's take a look at that. Here's a sample company policies and procedures handbook in Word format, and you can see this is from the PIC, Printing Industries of California, and you can just see it just shows you can join this organization. It gives you, here's their table of contents for their overall employee handbook. Similar informations, your industry reference checks, employee classifications, independent contractor information, temp, leased personnel. It just kind of goes on and on. And again, this is just a general idea. And so I'd like to see you go ahead and add to your knowledge base, go ahead and add to your overall set of resources some samples that you can find on the internet in PDF format or Word format for an employee handbook. Another aspect of personnel management is hiring and termination policies, or hiring and firing. With hiring, we're looking at things like signing confidentiality agreements, non-compete agreements, conflict of interest statements, looking into background checks, possibly bonding employees, looking at the risks versus the rewards of having temporary employees, contractors versus employees, and things like insourcing and outsourcing, which we'll look at in a little bit greater detail later on. In addition, your organization should have written termination policies that are established with clearly defined goals and procedures for separating your company from an employee. Built into this is properly protecting your organization's assets and your organization's data while also adhering to legal standards. For example, some of the control procedures would be things like returning all of the access keys, ID cards, and badges that are used for physical access, revoking logon IDs and passwords to terminate system access, notifying staff and security personnel, arranging for the final payment of salary or bonuses and other compensation, possibly conducting a termination review to get more information to help management in the future with dealing with personnel, and of course returning all company property. All good companies should have a promotion or advancement policy, fair and fully comprehended by all the employees. It should be based on objective criteria, not subjective criteria, and should look at the individual worker's performance, experience, responsibility level, and education, including ongoing education and certification. As an IS auditor, we want to make sure that the IS organization has properly structured policies and procedures for advancement, and make sure that the company is following those policies and procedures to the letter. Along with that, as an auditor, we want to make sure that the company has ongoing training and continuing education. If you're going to have advancement and promotion policies, you want to make sure that there's objective standards for advancement. And training and continuing education is really a part of this. If you're going to be compensating the employee or paying the employee, that should be well laid out in the policy as well. Ongoing security training is a key aspect to information security in your organization. Also, as far as personnel management, we look at scheduling the employees, reporting, for example, expense reports, usage reports, vacation, time off, those types of things. And of course, finally, evaluations. Evaluating on a regular basis, on a quarterly basis, on a biannual or annual basis, the performance of the actual individual employee. This should be a standard regular feature for all of the information security staff. Involved in this, besides the auditor, of course, is the Human Resources Department. Based on performance, an auditor is looking for salary increments, salary increases, performance bonuses, and promotions or advancement based on this performance evaluation. Now, I've already briefly alluded to this concept, which really relates to personnel management, and that's the concept of insourcing and outsourcing. Our sourcing practices are going to tie closely to where our organization is going to obtain its IS functionality, the support needed to run our business. We can run all of our IS functions in-house. This is called insourcing. Or we could outsource all of the functions internationally. Now, there's technically three ways to deliver information security functions. Insourcing, which the IS functionality is performed by the organization's staff. Outsourcing, which is fully performed by a vendor's staff. Or hybrid, which is what I find most often, a mix of the organization staff and the vendor staff. And this would be things like also including joint ventures, temporary employees, supplemental employees, things like that. Now, this IS functionality, even though it can be delivered in three different fashions and performed across the globe, you can then take advantage of other types of methodologies like on-site sourcing, where the staff works on-site in the IS department. Again, it can be insourced or outsourced and still be on-site, or they could be off-site. And again, your insourced or outsourced can be either on-site or off-site. Off-site, of course, is also known as what we call near shore, where the staff is working in a remote location in the same geographical area, or we have what's called offshore. And this would be, let's say, using programmers over in India or Pakistan, for example. As an auditor, you should realize that this insourcing and outsourcing strategy should be part of the IS steering committee's responsibilities. They're the ones that should review the strategy. They need to define what IS functions are going to be outsourced, if any. They're going to look at the service level agreements that are necessary, kind of the minimum requirements